Okay, now I'm recording it. So today we're going to talk about, I'm going to hide everything and everyone. So I'm going to talk about continuous integration and Jenkins. And I actually want to show you how it's used, how it's built, and how to work with it. Do you know what continuous integration stands for, what it means?
Not really.
So continuous integration, usually it's abbreviated like CI, is the practice of routinely integrating code changes into the main branch of a repository and testing the changes as early and often as possible. Ideally, developers will integrate their code daily, if not multiple times a day. So the idea is that you work on your code, you're creating pull requests. You remember when we studied Git, we looked how to do it. We've seen how to do it, seen examples. And so you're actually making pull requests, pushing your changes to master branch, for example, and then continuous integration system actually builds all the system, runs all the tests, and shows you the results. So this way you can actually run all the automated tests every day on every commit or every push to repository. So it looks like this. There's a diagram. So someone writes code, he commits changes to the source code. Someone is writing something. Yes, we'll see. Okay, Justina can join today. So someone is actually writing code, commits changes. As soon as those changes are committed, this continuous integration server runs all the code. It builds the code, runs tests, deploys it, and checks that everything went well, that there were no failures, no errors, that it was built. Because for languages like Java, C#, you need to compile test for code first. Then after you compiled it and built it, you're making sure there were no errors, you're testing it. After you ran all the tests and there's no errors, you're deploying it and making sure that there's no errors. And you're getting the feedback each time. Deploy, you're not really deploying to production branch yet. So at this time, you're still deploying to the test branch, the test server, and you can actually see how it works. Just a second, I'm going to close my window. So you're deploying to test server to see the result, to be able to run manual tests afterwards and use it. The different thing is continuous delivery, which is usually abbreviated like as CD. Continuous delivery is when your code base is always deployable, meaning ready to be pushed to production. So it's ready to go to production in one click. While it is recommended to deploy to production as soon as you get a green build meaning that all the tests passed, all the checks have passed. So you may decide to slow down the releases on purpose for business reasons, like for different business reasons. For example, if you don't want to deliver features to customers like every day, every 2 days, and you want to schedule somehow, you can actually create the schedule and code will be pushed automatically to production. So do you see the difference between continuous integration and continuous delivery? Are you with me, guys?
Yes, I am, but honestly, I don't see the difference.
So in continuous integration, when code is changed, it's simply built and placed to test server. In continuous delivery, as soon as developer finishes his work, pushes his changes to repository, it's going to production. Usually immediately, or it goes to production some specific time. So we actually don't have any more manual tests or anything. We simply automated everything, and as soon as all the tests are passing, all the code goes to production. So continuous integration, we're simply preparing everything, placing on a test server. Then we can run manual tests. We can do anything we want with this build. With continuous delivery, we simply push into production. So I know that Google, for example, uses continuous delivery on a lot of their systems. So developer actually works on code, he writes all the automation tests, he runs all the automated tests. As soon as all those tests are passing, all the code goes to production immediately. So no one actually waits for it. No one actually, usually you don't even have any announcements from Google that there were some update. For example, if you're like, have you seen any announcements about Gmail updates? That it was updated to some newer version? I've never seen it. Because like there's a team who works on Gmail, they usually update it constantly and push it. If they have some kind of like big, massive change, they would do it in a separate branch. They would prepare this big change, big PR, and then would push it. And then we'll continue to doing continuous delivery on this branch, just adding more features to your build. Is it clear right now?
Okay, so it's like in continuous delivery, is it? What was the name of this? I forget. But not continuous integration, but yes, continuous delivery. So they don't deploy on some different environments like testing environments and so on, but deploys for production only?
I mean, usually, in most cases, what is being done? Test, like all the code is being built, then all the code is being tested. Build is being deployed to test server. If everything went well, it's being deployed immediately further to production server. So in continuous integration, we simply stop at as soon as build passed and deploy to test server, we don't do anything afterwards.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
So there are quite a lot of tools for this. Like those are, each of those things is continuous integration, continuous delivery server. So it's like usually called continuous integration server. So there's Jenkins, TeamCity, Travis CI, Circle CI. There's a lot more. And it depends on each project. Each project might have their own preference and reasons to choose one or another tool. I actually don't know what would be those reasons, but people choosing different tools in different situations. So, do you have an idea how to plan and execute tasks without Jenkins? Because the idea of those continuous integration tools is that you can actually write some scripts or commands which server actually does at some specific point of time or at some trigger. For example, you can use Jenkins or those continuous integration servers, for example, to run tests on some branch every night. So you see, you can simply set up this server to take latest code from your branch, build it, and run all the tests, like all the end-to-end tests, for example, every night. Because like quite often what happens, unit tests are passing like in a minute or two. So even if you have like thousands of tests, unit tests are really fast. So it takes usually 1 or 2 minutes to finish it. So usually it's being part of build. Like every time you build your software, all the unit tests have to pass. But end-to-end tests usually are taking like half an hour or longer. So I worked on projects where like we had end-to-end tests and we had to spend like few weeks running those tests. So usually to run those tests, we use this continuous integration servers. And you can set up it to run at some specific point of time, for example, every night or every morning or twice a day or once a week. So you can actually schedule jobs at what time should it be run. Then other way to do it is actually use pre-push, I believe, pre-commit triggers that what Git has. And you can use those triggers to start run of tests or build or anything. So that's what's usually being used in most cases with continuous integration. So anytime anything is being pushed, then continuous integration server runs tests or builds and does its job. So usually what happens, it's simply scripts or actual commands which are being used to run all those tests. Remember when we used Maven and we ran automated tests? Remember we used this command mvn test. So you can actually take Jenkins, write this command, and actually just write like cd to the directory where you want to be, and then just run mvn test. And Jenkins would actually switch to this directory on your computer and would run this test. You can actually set up Jenkins locally and run it. But first, before we actually will get into Jenkins, I wanted to ask, do you know how to run scheduled tasks on your computer? For example, if you want to do something every morning, I don't know, like open some website and find like headers of all the news. Or I had a guy like who worked with me, he was a test engineer, and so when he was looking for a job, what he done, he simply wrote Java program, which actually opened few websites. It was like Indeed.com and other websites, would parse all the latest job offers or listings, and would show him all the listings for which would contain test, QA, or part-time. So this way he was like every morning, as soon as he comes to work, he would receive an email with the list of latest jobs and links to those positions. So he simply used Linux to do it. Do you know how to do it in Linux or Windows?
I don't know.
Okay, that's totally fine. So that's what we're going to talk about next. So in Linux and Unix, you can use cron tab. I'm actually going to talk about this one because in Windows, you can use Task Scheduler. So Task Scheduler is actually graphical utility where you can actually open it, simply press Add Task, specify time, save it, and it's going to run this task every time when you want to run. But Unix and Linux use cron tab. The reason why we're going to talk about it is because Jenkins uses similar syntax, and I'll show it to you later. So to use cron tab, if you have Linux terminal, you simply type cron tab -e. -e stands for edit. Because the only thing which this command does, like on Linux or Mac machines, there is such file, cron tabs, like var spool cron tabs. So this file has list of all the tasks which should be done on this computer. It should run. And when you use this command, cron tab -e, you simply edit this file. So instead of using this command, you can simply open this file and edit it manually. That would work the same. So important part is that cron tab has some specific format for any entry in this file. So if you would open this file on your Linux machine, if you have any jobs running there, you would see it like 0, 2, 12, star, star, and then command to run. The idea is that each of those fields, like first one stands for minutes, then hours, then days, months, day of week, and then command to run. So you actually specify in schedule here, and then command which you want to run. You can type any command. You can run any script. So I actually used cron tab when I needed to run automated testing at night. I simply could use cron tab instead of using Jenkins because I didn't want to set up server or anything. So I simply added one line to cron tab, and it was enough to run all the tests. So when we specify minutes, we can how to use it. For example, I knew that my automated tests ran for 15 minutes, and I needed to run those tests for Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, where else? Safari. So those are 4 browsers I had to do on Mac, and I had to run tests for all the same browsers on Windows. So I had to run the same set of tests 8 times. Each test suite would run 15 minutes. So what I would do, I would actually schedule like 0 minutes, then I would start next line and next test with different parameters. I would only change parameter what browser to use in my command. So I would write like 0 minutes, 16 minutes, 32 minutes, next one would be like 50 something. So I would just change minutes, then hours, and day of months I would put star. So when you put star, it means all the days of months. Remember, the same, like star is being used everywhere in the same meaning. So if you want to run something every month, every day of the week, every day of the month, you just put star. So I would just have star, star, star. Here I would have 0. Then I would just specify like 0 because I would start at 0 o'clock at night. And this way you can use it to, if you need to run something again and again. So instead of those 5 fields, you can actually use shortcuts. So here is your shortcuts. You can specify attribute parameter. And it means that you need to run something once at startup. At early, run once a year, at yearly, once a year. So it would stand for those like 0 minutes, 0 hours, 1st January every year. Like annually, the same as yearly, then monthly, run once a month. So it would be at 0 minutes, 0 hours, 1st day of each month, of each year. Weekly, run once a week stands for 0 hour, 0 minutes, 0 minute, 0 hour, every day, every month. And year stands 0. I don't actually know why, because it has to be star also. At least I think so. Run daily would be equivalent of this command. Midnight, the same as daily because it runs at midnight. Hourly, you can just write command 0 minutes, every hour, of every day, of every month, of every year. So let's see what we have in terminal. I've actually been using Jenkins here. One second. So we can use run tab -e. And you see, you simply have opened this file. You don't have anything here. And we can start writing in this format. So that would be, if you want to run something at night, that would be 0 minutes. For example, let's take 12 hours of day, so at 12 o'clock. If you want to run it only on the 1st day of month, or like, it can be every day, then the next one for every month. Actually think that those should be spaces somehow. So every day we have 0 minutes, 12 o'clock of every day, of every month, of every year. Correct? So we have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the only thing we should write, we just need to write some command. What command do you remember? So you can just, I'm actually curious to try this. Let's do it like this. How do you think, will it work? Oops. So I have it, it should do something 1955, but I actually don't know where it's going to do. Is it going to run it in this terminal, or is it going to start a separate session? So you see, you can actually specify time when to run some command. Do you understand it right now? Will you be able to use it?
Excuse me, I've got one question. Where should I be to run this command?
In Linux.
Yes, I know, but I tried from my home directory and it doesn't work, so.
So cron tab -e doesn't work.
In my home directory.
Can you run sudo cron tab -e? And is it, on Linux, or are you using just Bash terminal?
Bash terminal?
So it's not going to work because it's Windows, actually. You just have Bash terminal in Windows, so...
So virtual machine or something like that?
Yes, you should use virtual machine or something like that.
Okay, thanks.
I actually don't know where it worked. You have, okay, you have mail in var mail Vlad Romanchenko. Does anyone know how to read the mail? One second. You see, there is one message which we have, one new message from Chrome. Let me make it wider. And here is our message. You see, cron actually ran at the time which we specified at 1956. It ran, it used this shell, used this username, user, this home directory. Here is the time when it ran, and here's an output of this command. Do you see it? So you can actually specify any command to run here, and it's going to run, and it's going to send you mail to your mailbox as a result of this command. And you can actually just do anything and use any command. So if you want to automate any tasks on Linux, you can easily do it. And I think that supposedly new Windows terminal is going to support the same thing, but I'm not sure. So, okay, I'm getting back to my presentation. So do you have questions about cron tab? I guess no. So why do you need any of those commands? It's a really simple reason, because Jenkins uses the same time format which is used in cron tab. So what is Jenkins? Jenkins is a self-contained open source automation server which can be used to automate all sorts of tasks related to building, testing, delivering, or deploying of software. So you basically can use Jenkins to automate any tasks on your computer. So it's not really important what you want to automate. It's just if you want to automate anything, you can use Jenkins for it. And it's open source, it's free, so you can actually download it and install it and use it. So how to install Jenkins? Download it and then run it. To run it, you need to have Java installed. You specify a parameter -jar, because that's type of file which you're going to run. And you're running this Jenkins var file. Then you specify in this -- HTTP port equals, and here you can specify any number. So then Jenkins is going to run on this port. Then you have to browse, open this link, localhost, and this port name in your browser, and follow the instructions to complete the installation. Here's how this installation looks like. First, Jenkins, during the installation, when you run this command at first, it creates this file. Like in my case, it was like users, Jenkins, that's hidden folder, secrets, initial admin password. So it creates this file contains only one line, contains only initial password. You need to open this file and paste this password here in this field, administrator password. Do you remember how to open this file, how to read information from text file in Linux? Can anyone tell me how to do it?
It was echo comment?
Because echo, you would actually show the terminal the same phrase which you're going to place after echo. They were different command. It's really cute. Remember, there were cat command. So I had to run sudo cat and then users Vladimir Manchenko. I used sudo because I actually wasn't sure will I have permissions to open this file, so I used sudo. So cat, you're using this to show what's in this file. Okay. So afterwards, you're going to see this screen. Install suggested plugins. Select plugins to install. So I actually used all suggested plugins. I didn't select any special plugins. Usually Jenkins has basic functionality of planning, but you can actually install plugins to support, for example, Docker images and other functionality for different programming languages when it's needed. So you can actually Google for most of us things related to Jenkins plugins if you need to do something. Simply because I don't know why would I need anything except suggestions plugins, I didn't install it. I remember that I used once some mailing, like I needed some advanced email. I wanted actually to build email notification after all the tests are finished. So I actually downloaded plugin for it and configured it and use it. So then you would have to create your first admin user. You're using username, password, confirm password, writing full name, email address, pressing save and continue. So there's nothing scary, nothing special about it. Then it shows you that your instance configuration, your Jenkins is going to be run on this port, 8080. We press and save and finish, and you're going to see this page. Start using Jenkins. And then you will see this screen if you open it. If you want, I can actually show you how to do it, and you can do it on your own. But if you're on Windows, it might work different, but most likely it's going to work the same because Jenkins is written on Java, so it's actually cross-platform. So it has to work the same as on Linux as on Mac. So do you want to do it right now? So here is Jenkins website. You can go here, you see, here is download button. Are you going to follow me or no? Because that would be great if you would be following me right now and to try to do it on your own, so that you'd be ready to do it if you need. So I'll be showing, I'll be making pauses, and we'll be asking you if you have questions, and you'll be answering me. So I'm pressing this download button, waiting for a miracle to happen. It actually has this file, so I can actually open this directory. So I have it here, Jenkins. I'll just copy it because I already installed it once. I'll try to make this one more time. So a Jenkins copy. I'll call it Jenkins 2. I'm actually not sure if it's going to work because I didn't do it before. So let's see, do we have this file, this folder? Okay, there's this folder. Oops, wrong one. I should have this command. So I'm just using this command to run this Jenkins file. It starts everything. And now let's open our localhost 8080. Okay, I already configured this one. So I'll have to download it once again to be able to do it. 1 second, I'll kill it. I don't understand why Jenkins download doesn't want to work. Okay, so I'm downloading it. Oh, they actually have package for Mac OS X. That's interesting. But I don't want to install it this way. I'm just curious, how did they do it before? So in here, you see, for example, for Ubuntu Linux, they suggest that you use sudo apt-get update and sudo apt-get install Jenkins. So after you install it, you'll be able to run this command, as I showed before, this one. And it's going to allow you to configure Jenkins. I already done it on my computer because I was preparing slides to show all this, so I already did all those steps. So if you'll open it, you see I already have my user created. That same user which I actually created on that screen before. And in here you see this screen. So the idea is when there is sun, it means that this build is running correctly. So it's running successfully. If there is clouds, it means that something went wrong last time. So not all the builds passed. So it shows that it's running 59 seconds, actually less than a second, 59 hundredths of a second. And it was 2.5 hours ago. So how does Jenkins work? How to use Jenkins? In order to use Jenkins, you need to create jobs or pipelines and run it at specific time or use plugins to trigger it by commit. So you use UI to configure jobs and Jenkins file to configure pipelines. I know that it doesn't make much sense, but let me show you a job, how to create it. So for example, if I want to run some command, second, I just want to create a job. I'm just saying like test. And I can just write freestyle project and click OK here. So in this case, I'm simply creating job in UI. I can make a description, for example, running all the automated tests for IT Academy website. So you can just do it like that. If you want to use some Git repository, you can add it here. And then Jenkins would be pulling all the latest changes from this Git repository before it's going to run anything, and it's going to track this repository for any changes so that it would be able to run automatically on every push. I'm actually not interested in this. So you see here, there's this section, build triggers. So you can actually trigger remotely from scripts. You can set it up. Trigger build after other projects are built. So this way you actually would be running this build or this job after some other job is finished. So you might maybe, for example, building your other parts of application like database, preparing it, adding data there, and only then you would want to run tests. So you can actually create one build or one job to run preparation steps, and then second job to run actual build. You can use this build periodically, and here's schedule. So remember I told you about this format. So you can actually use this format the same as we used before, like 20, 12, star, star, star. I'm not sure if I'll be able to finish it. So we can save it for now. It says it's expecting and the file found star. So, okay, it wasn't able to parse this thing. So that was, oops, wrong one. That was this one. I actually made a mistake here somehow. Again, it says that it has an error and the file in this line. Just curious to see what's in the terminal. So you see, it even uses Java library called crontab and uses crontab parser. I might know what's the reason. Will it work like this? I figured out I didn't need to specify this part because actual command is being commands to run specified in different place. So that's just build trigger. So in here we can add build step, execute Windows batch command, execute shell. And here I have to write but 14 minutes already passed, so I'll put 15 minutes. Yeah, now it worked. So you can open here, you can see status, we can actually go back here. If you want to build it right now, you can simply press build now. It says build scheduled, here is our build running. So you see it actually ran the command and showed echo it works, finished success. So we can open Jenkins and see that it finished successfully. If we want to edit it, we can change time when I want to see it running. So you can put 16 minutes here, for example. Save it and then wait for 1 minute to run. Do you understand what's happening? What are we doing? How it works? Is it clear for you? Do you have any questions?
Yes. I understand, but my question is why did it work for the first time and then it works?
Why it didn't work for the first time?
Mm-hmm.
That was stupid me. That's so simple. I'm going to show you an answer in a second. I just want to wait for 16 minutes so that it would run automatically.
Okay.
Jakob, what did you want to say? So you see it started. It actually had to finish already. Does anyone know what was the problem with this build? Do you have any ideas? So, idea is this part specifies on the schedule, and I tried to use it as a cron tab line. And so instead of specifying only those 5 parameters, I actually specified actual command to run. But actual command had to be specified here. So that was a simple example. Do you understand why it worked, or actually why it didn't work, Eva?
Now, yes, I understand.
I mean, here I had to specify only minutes, hours, days, weeks, I mean, years, months, and stuff like that. But I actually try to specify command, but command has to be specified here. And in this part, you can actually specify any command you want to use. So, for example, I have my, let's see, in my projects, I have less. For example, I have this Jazz Bootcamp, and I have a to-do application here. So there is a command which can be used to run this thing. It's npm run build, for example. So what I can do, I can actually copy this location, this link. I can simply type cd. It's going to do this first time, and then npm run build, like this. At what time do you want to do it? I mean, I'm not going to schedule it because I can just press button and run it. And so if I'll press build it now, we'll see what happens here. You see it starts. It's actually switched to this done cd npm run build. And it starts to actually build all the modules. It compiled successfully. But it still does something because it actually built this file. 1 second, I need to check what did I write in this command. Mode production, I mean, I actually think that it's not going to stop ever, just because this command keeps running instead of and cannot be finished. So I would have to stop actual build manually somewhere. So I can go here and like press this button. Do you want to abort? Yes. So you see, if you need to automate any tasks, you can use Jenkins. You can set up it locally, add it to your cron tab so that it would be running all the time, and you can add any jobs you would want to do. Do you understand it? I mean, till this point, is it clear for you?
Yes, it is.
Great. And we can delete this project because we don't need it. So that's how we can configure jobs. So that's using UI. But Jenkins has another thing which can be used is pipelines. The idea of a pipeline, the difference between pipeline and job. Pipeline is a scripted job which runs on the Jenkins master, and it uses lightweight executor, and it actually runs on separate agents. So it's, I mean, all those terms are tricky, but it actually allows you to run multiple commands on different agents at the same time. So it actually takes less resources. And the idea of those pipelines that you can actually write Jenkins file, add it to your main directory. For example, in this case, okay, 1 second, I have this folder. That's a folder with my project. If I want to use Jenkins to run it here, I can simply do like touch, or I mean, I can open it in my Visual Studio Code, for example, because simply it's much more convenient. And I can create in my root directory here, I can create file and simply name it like Jenkins file. You see, Visual Studio Code even knows what kind of file is this, and it actually knows the syntax of this file. In this file, I can write all the steps which Jenkins has to do. So I don't need UI to specify steps. I can write everything in the file as a script, and it's going to run all those commands every time it fetches or actually gets the directory. So on any push to repository, Jenkins would see this Jenkins file, would see the steps which it has to take, and would run those commands. So I'll just go here to my presentation to show you the difference. So to create a job, I showed you how to do it. You press a new item, select freestyle job, giving it a name, adding commands to execute, and actions to do after execution. That's actually the part which I forgot to show you. So I'll create it one more time. So remember, in freestyle project, you can create it, describe it. Somehow it's not important how you're describing it. Specify when to run it, like 0, 0, and then like this. You can specify what, you see, you can specify execute shell. We'll do the same thing. And here you see we have post-build actions. So in those post-build actions, you can archive the artifacts. For example, if you're generating a lot of logs during your test runs, you can simply create an archive with all those test results, all those files. You can publish the unit test result report, so you can actually create this report. You can use Git Publisher, you can email notification. So you can actually compose actual email, so you can actually see here. We can add recipients here. You can create default list of recipients, for example, your organization, and everyone in this list would be receiving this email. So that one is simple because you simply specify a recipient and that's it. But you can add plugin and allow to, or maybe this one would work. So you see, editable email notification. You can actually specify default recipients. You can change this list, or you can actually add here anything like, I don't know, I can add my email. So when this build finishes, it's going to send me the result of this build. And you can add here attachments. So you can actually specify, you can first create zip archive with the results of a test run, and then you can attach it here. You can attach build log if you want to. So you can actually do a lot of different actions after build is finished. So here is your build steps. So you actually write in commands which Jenkins has to execute during the run. And post-build actions, for example, if you want to delete all the extra folders which you didn't need. For example, Cypress is the library which you're using during the tests. Always creates video, snapshots, and the pictures of a run. And usually those take a lot of space. And if we're going to be storing videos from all the previous runs, which are run like 10 times a day, it will just eat up all the space in a server. So it's a good idea after each run to simply delete or remove this folder. So in here in this post-build actions, you can actually specify actions to do and delete everyone if you want to. So is it clear? Do you understand it? Are you with me? Can you hear me?
Yes, and it's clear.
Great. So
I don't know where to put this delete.
In post-build
where to put this
So you can actually open here and see.
Do you mean?
Delete workspace on build is done. There's even
okay.
an option here. You can just press this one.
Okay, I understand.
So in here, you see we have those default recipients, default reply to, default subject, default content. Do you have an idea where it comes from, what it stands for, what it means? So in Jenkins, you can, I'll leave this page, I don't care about it. You can go to your actual Jenkins and set it up. So manage Jenkins. And in here, you can configure your system, global security, global credentials. I actually don't remember where to configure all those global default recipients and stuff, but I believe it should be here. So let's look. You see you have this Jenkins URL, which you can configure. Here is system admin email address, which is not configured yet. If we want to, we can specify GitHub servers, which you're using, because we can use some special servers. Default content type. Here is, you can use your SMTP server. So in here, you'll have to specify for your extended email notifications. For example, you can use Gmail. I don't know, like the same way you set it up, if you ever set it up Outlook Express or Thunderbird or any other email client on your computer, the same way you would set it up here. For example, you would have to write smtp gmail.com, default user email suffix. You'll have to write your username to run. You can use advanced to actually use SMTP authentication. If you want to use SSL, if it's needed, specify port. So all those settings you can find for your preferred client. For example, I'm using Gmail. You can just open there and find how to set up SMTP, and you'll see it. And then here you see default recipients, that where you can actually specify all those people who should receive an email from you. Then reply to list. You can actually specify list of people who are going to get replied to. Like emergency route, if someone didn't receive an email or like something didn't work, where to send an email. Allowed domains and stuff like that. So you can actually default subject. You see default subject is project name, build number, and build status. So you can actually see it. So in here, you can actually specify everything, like default content, because it has check console output at build URL for this to view the results. It's actually going to send this build URL. So here you can specify all the settings for your email. So if you want to send email notification for your tests, you can configure Jenkins and send it. So even at your work, where you work as manual testers, if there are no automation at all, you might want to install Jenkins on your local machine if you're allowed to do it. I mean, because some companies might have restrictions or some policies regarding your computers. You can install Jenkins locally, write some tests, and start sending results to some people. You could add some, I forgot the name of this tool. So you can use, for example, like Allure reports. I don't know, have you heard about it? But there's such framework. It allows you to generate reports in this view, where you can actually see everything, how many tests passed, failed, ran, didn't run. So you can actually specify all that, set it up, and start sending those emails. If it works, if everyone likes it, you might be promoted to automation QA, and actually that might help you a lot. So do you understand it for now? So that's a place where you can set up all your settings. And if you want to, you can use post-build actions, those triggers as we've seen here. You can configure it. And here you can specify build actions, post-build. Here you can specify it again, build environment, things which you want to use. So that's how to stop freestyle job. If you want to use pipeline, you should create new item, then select multi-branch pipeline, add source. Add source means that you have to specify a link to your GitHub. where all your source files are stored. And then you have to edit Jenkins file in your source code. I never had to do it, so I'm going to show you just from examples which I have. So the idea is in here, has been done. Like so here's an example of this file. That's how Jenkins file for Java might look like. You simply have to start with pipeline and those square brackets. Then agent. You can specify specific agent. For example, if you want to use Docker container, we've never talked about Docker, but Docker allows you to run programs without installing it. It actually creates kind of like separate virtual machine where it actually runs this program. So if you need to use some databases, you can simply pull Docker image and run it locally. That's just like newest technologies out there. That, at least in my project, that's what we use. So you can specify that you want to use Maven image, this image. So instead of going to folder or anything, you can just specify image that you want to use. Then you can specify stages. So stages are like steps which you need to take. In this case, there's only one step, build. And I mean, one stage, build, which has only one step. SH stands for shell, so meaning run shell command. MVN -- version. So you know what this command will do. This command is going to pull this Docker image and will show the version of this Maven tool. So that's the syntax which you'll have to use. So in our case, if we would want to use it, we would start typing pipeline, square brackets, and I would do the same thing like agent. I would use any, just because I suppose it has to be like this, but I'm not sure. Then stages, stage, you can call it, for example, test, steps, and here you can specify steps to take. For example, you can npm, you can specify sh. So for example, that would be the command for JavaScript. So this one should work. For this project, I mean, it's simply going to use any agent. If you will have only one stage test, and we'll run this command. So you can run multiple steps and commands in one pipeline. So here's an example how to run multiple commands in Linux or Mac. So you, the same as I wrote. Okay, yeah, I see I have error here. It should be like this. So in here again, specifying that it's a pipeline, but it uses any agent. It has stages. In reality, it has only one stage, which is called build. You see, that's just a string, so you can name it anyhow you want to. And it has few steps. First step, echo hello world. Second, sh command simply ... and then echo multiple shell steps works too. And then ls minus lh. So you can actually simply run each of those commands. So in Windows, you would do it the same, but they just run it, they create a bat file that you need to do or run to run scripts on Windows machine. So you can use timeouts here. So for example, in this case, for example, stage is deploy, steps retry 3 times, and run this file, flaky deploy sh. So that's just a script which you need to run 3 times, or actually retry running it 3 times if it fails. Or you can specify timeout, for example, 3 minutes to run this command, health check. So it's going to run this command every 3 minutes, and it's going to show you what happens. You can do a cleanup, like in this case, for example. You can use pipeline, test, for example, steps, echo fail exit 1. So we actually creating test which is failed. And you want to do post actions. So in case of Jenkins file, you can specify post build actions in here. For example, you can specify always run. Echo this will always run. On success, run this command. On failure, run this command. So for example, you might set your server to email you email notifications about builds which are failing. For example, in our case, if build is not failing and passing without errors, we never receive notifications just because there is no need to receive it on success. Like I pushed my code, it worked, great. If I didn't receive any emails, it means that everything worked. Only if there's a failure, then I'm receiving an email. So in Jenkins, you can use this syntax to specify any of those actions. So always to run commands, always, no matter what happens during the build. Success, to run command on successful build. Failure, to run command on failed build. Unstable. So for example, if your build fails, then next run it passes, then again fails, it will run on the builds which are marked as unstable. Changed, this will run only if the state of pipeline has changed. For example, if tests were failing constantly and then starting to pass, then commands in this part will be triggered. So if you want to read more, you can read on Jenkins.io docs. That's it for today. So do you have any questions?
I've got a question about a pipeline. So did I understand it correctly that we managing Jenkins from command line with this pipeline commands?
Not really. So you actually, in your project, to use pipeline, in the root directory of your project is here. I've showed it. 1 second. Where's my Visual Studio Code? So, for example, I have my project. Oh, that's a different one. It's actually okay. So, for example, this file. I have my applications in here. So I have this like notes application. If I want to use Jenkins to run it, I would have to create Jenkins file in this directory. So I'm just adding file, calling it Jenkins file, just like this. It's a case sensitive naming. So you first letter should be capital, all the rest of the letters should be small. And then in here, you're actually writing this pipeline, square brackets, and then agent any, stages, and you just have to specify all those parameters. So, and then when Jenkins actually is going to pull this repository, it's going to run all the commands from this Jenkins file. So let me show you how it looks like. So for example, I have this test pipeline in here, which never works. The reason is simple. If you look at the configuration, so I actually didn't grades up. So I didn't specify anything here at all. So I just created pipeline like multi-branch configuration. I need to specify Git project. So you see, I had to add this Git URL. So I would have to go to GitHub, find my grades project, specify Git URL here. I don't think that I need to do anything other than that. But in my project, I actually have to add this file, Jenkins file. So I'll have to find this project in my computer. So I have this project, so I'm going to open it. And so in here, in the root directory, I have to create this file and use it to set up what Jenkins is going to do when it runs. I'm actually getting to memorize everything from here. So do you understand it?
It looks complicated, but I think
I
I
mean,
got it.
the
So.
idea- Yes, the idea is that it has this syntax where you're creating a file inside in a root directory of your project. So when you create a project, you just need to add this file. And then when Jenkins pulls this repository, it's going to run steps which are specified in here. So for example, I can run npm run, I don't remember how I run it. So 1 second. You see I have test in here. So I can go to npm run test. And it's then when Jenkins pulls this repository, it's going to run this command and show the results. If I want to add steps which are going to run afterwards, I would have to add this post. So for example, where am I here? So stages, post, here. So for example, I want to run something always. So there is mail command, so I'll have to again use sage mail. So for example, this way it's going to run tests if everything, like, and always is going to send me emails that it worked. I mean, the idea of this lesson so that you would understand what happens in a project and would be able to build up knowledge later. So I didn't have in my mind the idea to actually teach you how to do it and learn everything. Because throughout those years, I actually didn't have, I mean, I used it only a few times. In this last project, I actually set up Jenkins and used it to run automated tests. But I worked as senior QA automation, so that was expected of me. So I don't think that anyone expects you to be able to set up and run Jenkins jobs and tune it if you'll be junior test engineers. But the idea is that you have to know how to do it, how it's being done, like in our days. Do you have any questions? Right now, I'm curious to see how we're doing it. So in here we have those separate files. Just 1 second. So most likely this is root of our project. And we're using little different things. So we're using Docker, that's what we use. And there is make file, that's also for Docker. And I believe that somehow we're going to see something for Circle CI. So Circle CI uses this make file to do the same thing. So it actually, you can see that we use this image. This is command which you use, branch which you use. That's how we, one command, then we run build, lint, test. So that's it for today. If you don't have any question, if you don't mind, we can finish. Or if you have questions, please ask. Can I stop recording?
For me, yes, we can stop. I don't have any questions.
Okay, great.